Are you loading from your end for the PowerPoint? Yes? Okay, I'll just follow your lead on that one then. Hello, everybody. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Nice to see everybody's faces again. Welcome back. Last week, my God, where has the last 4 weeks gone? 5 weeks gone. Yeah. I was just going to say welcome back to everybody. I don't think we need to go through what our project is and everything behind it. I don't think we've got anybody new this week, have we? We've all been on before, so let's just save ourselves a bit of time there. Gives us a bit more time for questions. Just as usual, just pop yourselves on mute just now, as we normally do. And what we're going to do this morning is go through some of the questions. Sharon has gone through the chat and made a little PowerPoint for us this week as well, which has got most of your questions on it, and then we've got one or two that we might add in as well. We had a wee late one coming in yesterday, so we've got a few wee questions and things which were from your chat sessions that you did in your breakout rooms last week, to go through and find out what your sort of main ideas and group thoughts and things were as to what you were needing a bit of help with and some tips on. So we've got a wee PowerPoint on that, which hopefully will incorporate all of the bits and pieces that you were asking about. There is also available to us some seeds from Tamar. Is that right, Sharon? Yeah. So we will be sending those out with you for, no. Sorry, only one coffee this morning. We will be sending them out to you after we get all our questionnaires and things all emailed out to you. Sharon's got a questionnaire thing for you to fill out for us as well, please, if you don't mind. And then within the next few weeks, we'll be sending those seeds out to you. So just in time to start sowing, all of you that are too impatient like me that want to start sowing. So yeah, can everybody hear me? Oh, did you hear me crunching on granola? No, Laura, we didn't. Sorry, I thought you were talking about me there. I couldn't hear me. Right, so yeah, I'm on the phone hotspot this morning because the house Wi-Fi is so poor today, so with the wind, so hopefully you can all hear me. You just need to put a message up and let us know if you don't. So yeah, there'll be a wee questionnaire getting emailed out to you, and there'll be some seeds on the way to you just in time for the new growing season as well, for you to start sowing. And then we've got our WhatsApp group. If you need any further help, we'll be there. So a wee slideshow. We've got some bits on common pests and diseases. We've got some bits on an introduction to some common plants, which was pulled from the chat, so the ones that you wanted to talk about. And then a little bit more on using natural feeds for your plants and things like that as well. A few last wee questions, a little bit of a roundup and a conclusion, and that will be our session. So, without anything else you want to say, Sharon? Have I missed anything?
No. Oh, one of the questions that came through is about sowing schedules and things for the Highlands. So we'll cover that as well.
That's right. Yeah.
So we went through all the questions and pulled sort of 4 main things to cover this session. So hopefully most of you will find what you need. I've got a couple of other questions that I know maybe might not be covered, but I'll try and touch on them, or I'll just shotgun Jill with scary questions in the interval. But I am mindful of time, so we'll go till about 11, if that's all right with Jill, and anyone who wants to dip out at 10:45, of course. But if you don't find question answers, really the best thing I can do is just reiterate that invitation to join the WhatsApp group, because I suspect if you're like me, there'll be a million questions as the season goes on. And that group is a sort of support network for us to support each other. So it's not that you ask me and Jill questions, it's that we all answer, you know, so everyone who's got different experience or different knowledge. So it's really like a group forum. So you'll find sometimes me and Jill will be quiet because we'll let each other answer. We'll look to the group for their experience because it's an interactory thing. So if you don't find your question answered, don't panic. And the other route to answering lots of questions is to come and volunteer at the gardens. Let's get started. Doobie-doobie-doo. Jill, give us a wee nod. Can you see my slides?
Can indeed, yes.
Well, there we go.
Up to slideshow.
Just get it started from the beginning.
From beginning. Super.
Pests, feeds and plants.
What a combination.
A slight disclaimer here that are you able to admit people, Jill? Do you see that? Or is it just me, probably?
No.
That's right, I've done it. I've done it.
Oh.
I've done it.
Multitasking. Multitasking.
Clever. So, some common pests. I would suggest that you focus with your organic gardening philosophy that we're going to have, that we're trying to create in our gardens the optimum conditions for healthy growth. So if necessary, just accept as you go along that some of your plants will get pests and diseases, you will lose some. You're hoping to make, or I would suggest that you're hoping to make a really healthy overall system. So your system is healthy and you have some losses. One of the things I tend to do is plant about 20% more than I think I need, because I just accept that sometimes the slug or the pigeon's going to get it. And I oversow slightly, not too much, so that if things are suffering or get hit with diseases, I've got other plants to put into place. So don't get stuck on the detail here, because it can be a wee bit scary. But these are just some of the common pests that you might find in your gardens. So we'll start with the caterpillars, which is in the bottom middle. They're the larval forms of butterflies. That's a cabbage white caterpillar that you can see. They mainly attack things like brassicas, and the caterpillar will hatch its eggs, and then the larval forms will hatch, and then they'll start eating the holes. And they're usually very visible. They're usually quite concentrated. If you start to see them, pay attention and get on top of them, because they can wipe out plants very, very quickly. So if they get as fat and chunky as those caterpillars there, you're in trouble. And my best advice is just go along and pick them off by hand. Go and pop them in your compost bay, feed them to your chickens, something like that. Send the kids out. Oh, look, Jill's got one of her laminated slides out. Go on, Jill, what are you going to say about that?
Just large cabbage white butterflies. This was revision. So it's life cycles. So yeah, get on top of them very quickly, as Sharon says, because you've got first generations and second generations emerging in July as well. So yeah, keep on top. Yeah, definitely.
Weevils, that's at the bottom right hand corner, lots of adult and larval forms. They're grubs. They can cause damage to your roots, your stems, your leaves and your pods, so it's worth paying attention to them. But the damage is soon noticeable. Aphids, these are the top left, these like small sticky greeny things. These are one of my arch nemesises. I've had them a lot in gardens over the year. The group that the aphids come from, it includes things like green fly, black fly, white fly, mealy aphid and root aphids. So there are lots of things, and what they basically do is they pierce the leaves and they suck the sap out of the leaves. So you can see them because your leaves, particularly things in your polytunnel, I found, so things like tomato plants are most susceptible in my experience, but your leaves sort of start to curl and look wilted, and then start poking about in your leaves. If you see leaves curling, if you see a plant not looking super healthy, go and start investigating. If you find these guys, I think my best experience with them is getting on top of them, like wiping them off the leaves, getting a soapy, like just a little bit of liquid detergent, and then sponge and wiping them off the leaves, picking the whole leaf off because they tend to congregate, going back every day, checking every day, and also garlic spray is really good. So crush some garlic in a bottle, dilute it with water. Garlic is really strong, and then you can just literally spray the little things off it. Garlic. But yeah, again, get on top. They can knock back young plants. Jill's got a little pokey finger. Go on, Jill, I know you'd love this section.
I know, I love this. Yeah, I got a commendation in this module. I love this module. What was I going to say? One of the other signs that you'll see as well is the leaves look sticky. They look like they've got a sort of sticky covering on them. So what Sharon was saying about the leaves curling and looking distorted, sometimes what you see is the surface of the leaf looking like it's got sort of sticky sugar on top. And that is exactly what it is. It's the sugars from the plant, because they've stuck in their little stylet and they've sucked all the juices out the plant, and it leaves this kind of sugary, sticky covering on top of the leaf. And sometimes you see that as well. It's another sure sign. Yeah, sorry, Shaz.
No, they're tiny. These are tiny. I should have put a size between the tiny, but they can be absolutely prolific. Other things, larval forms of insects. So quite a lot of familiar insects have larval forms. They include things like cutworm, wireworm, chafer bugs, leather jackets. There's all sorts of things. I know mainly night feeders. That top right picture, you can see the larval form or something. And I lost a 12-metre bed of brassicas to these guys last year, and they just sort of chewed through the roots of all the brassicas, and suddenly I had beautiful healthy plants that just fell over. You know, within a week I'd lost sort of 60 plants or something. So just be mindful if you start to see a plant. My best advice is if you start to see a plant that's just looking like, use observation. That's one of your most important tools as a gardener. If you start to see a plant that's just, you're not quite sure, it's not quite right, go and check it out. Get to know the beneficials in your garden. So some examples of beneficials are like the ground beetles, devil's coach horse, ladybirds, with both the adults and the larvae, hoverflies and lacewings. So we've talked about companion planting and encouraging areas in your garden to get those in. But a sort of good rule of thumb is if the grub is fast moving, and related creatures such as centipedes, things like that, they tend to be a prey plant, so a prey bug, so they're going to catch something, they're the catcher. Whereas they're therefore beneficial to you. Whereas if they're slow moving, like things like slugs and snails and things like that, and some of the millipedes, then they tend to be the pests from our point of view, because they're eating their way through your plants. Things like wasps, frogs and toads, they're all beneficial, possibly less beneficial if you've got an apple tree and a wasp population. But yeah, some rules of thumb. I've put that picture up there. I'll put it in the email as well, but that's a great book if you're starting out. He's got an absolutely brilliant page. I think I've got an older version of the book, but there's a brilliant page in mine, and I'm sure it'll be in that one there, of sort of common things to look for, to notice on your plant, and ways to alleviate it. But actually also in general, it's a great book because it tells you different plants and how to sow them, sowing distances, varieties, harvesting, all sorts of information. And it's about £4.50 off eBay secondhand. So I would highly recommend that book if you're in your first sort of 5 years of growing.
Definitely. I would second that.
That's good. I do love when we go to agree. We haven't decided we're going to agree, but we agree. But that's the sort of, that picture on the left is the sort of picture that you'll see in that book. It's just showing some common things if your plant isn't looking tip-top healthy. It might be due to a pest and disease, or it might be as simple as a plant deficiency, which also exhibits itself in leaves and things like that. And there's different things that you can do. I'm not going to go into them in huge detail, and I'm still learning myself. Every year's a what's it called? Every day's a what's it called? But yeah,
A learning day.
Learning day.
A school day.
A school day. But as you get further along, but again, don't be daunted by this stuff. Don't sweat it too much. It's just, you know, in 50 years' time, we'll all have been gardening and we'll have loads of confidence. So it's just a learning curve, just so you sort of know and are aware. So we've got, I think, 4 or 5 plants that Jill's just going to spend a minute or two on each plant to go over some basics about growing that plant, so you've got a little bit more confidence. Is that right, Jill? Just to go over a little bit more confidence for people.
Yeah.
Because that sort of came up in the chat, just to touch on a few plants. But again, I'd recommend something like that. Get that in your seed packet, because that'll help a lot. But go on, off you go then, Jill.
What are we starting on? Potatoes. Potatoes. Okay. So potatoes then. You hear a lot of talk at this time of year about ordering your seed potatoes, and if you've ever ordered seeds and things from online, you'll probably be getting bombarded with buy your seed potatoes, blah blah blah. And a lot of these companies start bombarding you in December to buy your seed potatoes, and actually that's a little bit too early for us up here. So remember that potatoes are not frost hardy. Okay. So what they do is they take their potatoes in from the seed merchants, they store them in really cold conditions to keep them to store, and then because they want to get fresh varieties in and next season's varieties in, they then start promoting and pushing and pushing and pushing and getting you guys to try and buy them as quickly as possible. And there's usually a wee bit too early in the season. So I wouldn't be starting to chip potatoes until now. I usually start either in the sort of first fortnight in February, and I don't usually start buying them until about January time. Our ones were popped in the fridge, I think I said, in the last couple of weeks as well. So ours are now out the fridge and they're all sitting chitting. To chit or not to chit is very much a personal thing. There are some people, some far more experienced growers than me, that say you don't need to chit them, and there are other growers that say you do need to chit them. So that really is very much up to yourselves. Personally, I usually do chit them and I get them started, and then I know that you're putting something in the ground that has actually got an active sprout coming out of it, and you're not just putting a tuber in the ground that's just going to sit there and rot and not do anything. So, so chitting, I've just seen a wee quick question there coming up. Chitting is allowing the potatoes to stay somewhere cool, not completely dark, but not in bright sunshine either. So they need a reasonable amount of light and not too hot a temperature. I'm sitting with the little tubers, one of the little potatoes, and you know how you get eyes on them? And you leave the little eye pointing up the way towards the light, and what you'll get is you'll see a little baby tiny sprout coming from that. And that's the start of the leaf growth and the stem coming away from the tuber. And once you've got it to that point, usually when they're about sort of 2 centimetres to an inch high, you can then pop them in the ground from there. But just be a little bit careful with them. You can put them in containers, you can put them into the ground, you can grow them in raised beds. So you get different varieties as well, of course, you get different types. And what I'm meaning from that is you will see early, what are classed as early potatoes, you will see what are classed as second early potatoes, and then you'll see what are classed as main crop potatoes. And that generally relates to the length of time that the potato is going to be growing. Okay, so first earlies normally are harvested after around 90 days, and you will see them ready when the flowers start to open. Some people say that first earlies don't flower. My first earlies have always flowered, so I'm not an expert on that one. But usually when you start to see the flower and the flower starts to open, that means that you can harvest your potatoes for first earlies. They're usually in round about 90 days, and you will get lower yields of them. You don't get the high yields that you would from a main crop. They tend to be lower yields, so don't expect too much. First early potatoes are best used fresh. That's why we're calling them new potatoes. Second earlies are harvested in about 110 days, and then your main crops are about 120 days, but can be 135 up to 160, very much weather dependent. But main crops are very good for storing potatoes. If you want to store potatoes to use further on in the year, then that's your main crop varieties. If you're going to store your potatoes, leave them in the ground for a fortnight after you've cut the stalks off them, and that firms the skins up and that helps them to store better. Okay, do you earth up or do you not earth up? Again, this blew my mind when I found this out, because I've always heard of determinate and indeterminate when it comes to tomatoes, and we learned the difference between them. What I didn't know was that there's also a difference determinate and indeterminate potatoes as well, which blew my mind up because I didn't know about that. And that depends on if they're a determinate variety, they do not benefit from earthing up. They grow at the same level that the seed tuber is at. And if they are indeterminate, you do earth them up. Don't ask me too much about that because I still haven't got my head around it. And as I say, when I learned that one, it just about blew my head off, because I was like, what? Never heard of that before. I don't know, Sharon, if you've come across that before, but I certainly haven't. I forgot to ask you that, actually. So is that okay for potatoes? Potatoes generally need a reasonably fairly fertile soil, but not overly fertile. And I tend to just sort of bury them in a trench. I tend to build a trench about a spade deep, put them in the bottom, and then I earth them up a little bit and they go from there. Or you can put them in a container bag Containers are great for growing them in containers, especially at this time of year when you might still get some frosts. You can move the container into some shelter if it's going to get cold. Okay, that making sense?
Great one to start with if it's your first year gardening. They're really prolific, they're fun, they're easy with kids, and they tend to be, you know, like they're pretty good. How far apart do you plant them? About 12 inches.
Yeah.
She says, looking at her, but I give them a good spacing. And this one is saying 12 inches apart, 15 inches if it's a main crop variety, 24 inches in between the rows. Unfortunately, if you ask me anything in gardening, I'll always say it's about that much, but with potatoes, it's about that much.
Yeah, a wee bit more.
Compost, I know, mixed compost and topsoil, that's fine. They're heavy feeders, so you can have some old muck and manure in there as well. That helps. They're quite good if you're starting off beds.
They don't like the cold. They don't like the wet.
Don't plant them out until any danger of frost has passed. Right, Jill.
Which
I think you've
generally for up here is May for us, at least May.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wait till after the May Day holidays before I put anything out. So, okay, where are we now? We're on to peas.
We are going to give everyone a planting guide of when to put what in the ground as well. So don't sweat if you've not got that down. It'll tell you when to put things in. Go on. Peas, Jill. Peas, please.
Peas, first introduced into European gardens in the 16th century. Amazing, isn't it? So they like a fairly fertile, well-drained site. Sorry, well-drained site.
You've got far too much time on your hands.
I'll start that again. They like a fairly fertile, well-drained site in full sun. They do like a bit of sunshine, okay? So try and get into your ground a little bit of manure the previous autumn. So say, for example, if you wanted to put peas into a plot, into a raised bed this year, you would have been digging in some manure into your ground in the past autumn there so that it breaks down over the winter and there's plenty nutrients in the ground for your peas to grow. Peas are from the legume family, what's called the legume family, and they actually fix nitrogen in your soil. So brassicas are always a good one to follow peas with because there's more nitrogen in your soil. Generally speaking, what I do is just take all my pods off the plants and then let them all die down. And I don't even bother cutting them down or anything. I just kind of fold them over, let them die down over the top of the plot, and then just let them incorporate down into the soil with the mulch, and you've locked all that nitrogen in. That's, I think, is a good way of doing it. Again, Sharon might have a different point of view here, but that's quite a good way. I learned that one from Hugh Richards. That's what he does. So usually you can put them about 8 to 12 centimetres apart again, or slightly smaller if you're sowing dwarf varieties. They can go a little bit smaller, maybe about 5 centimetres apart from them. And you can of course put them in rows and things as well. They will need support, they will climb up, and I tend to use wigwams. I just buy big long canes and I make wigwams out. It's great fun, great job to do with kids again. Build some wigwams and let them grow up the wigwams, and I'll put some on the outer side of the pole and I'll put some on the inside of the pole, and I usually plonk one right in the middle and grow one right up through the centre, up a piece of string to the top of the wigwam. That's how I usually do it as well. You need to just kind of keep them well weeded, I would say, for peas, just because they will tangle up quite well with weeds and things as well, so just watch that one. But pop a little bit of mulch down over the top of the bed that they're growing, and that will help to keep your weeds down a little bit there as well. Very, very prone to pest and diseases, particularly things like pigeons will come in and try and nip your peas. So I would say they need a bit of protection, particularly when they're smaller. Let them grow on a little bit. Don't try and put them out when they're tiny little pea shoots, because the birds will just rip them to shreds. They'll be gone in seconds. You'll turn your back, look back round again, and your peas will be gone. So grow them on a bit and get them bigger and stronger and healthier before you put them out as well. It's one of the things I've had to learn as a gardener. My patience is probably about that much, maybe even less than that some days. And my patience, I'm always like, oh, I want to get things out, I want to get things in the ground. And you're just giving yourself extra work, and you're just giving yourself a little bit of heartache, because if you try and put things out when it's not ready to go out, you're going to lose them. So that's one of the battles against the birds, is get them grown up a bit so they're a bit stronger, and then they're not quite so vulnerable to attack. Okay. Oh, somebody's got bamboo growing in their garden. Superb. Who is that? Claire.
I just asked Jill, once you've got peas, pick and keep picking them, because it'll encourage it to keep flowering. So once you see your pea pods, don't be shy, start picking them, because it'll keep the bush flowering.
Good varieties for up here. I've got Avola, Celebration, Meteor. These are ones that I've grown in the past. And the name of the other one's just gone out my head. Starts with an H, Helvenden Green Shaft or something they're called, Helveden, something like that. But those are quite good early varieties. So they'll come on a bit quicker as well up in here. So.
I'll tell you what, sorry, can I chirp in again as well?
Go on.
Bamboo canes are good with that tripod, but the picture in the top right is 2 stakes with chicken wire in between it. And you can plant on either side, and that also works really well. So if you don't, there's lots of different ways and things you can do to plant peas up. So a quick Google image or a quick search of pea planting trellises would get you lots of different ideas.
I've just found the name, Hurst Green Shaft. Hurst Green Shaft, they're a main crop peas, but they're really, really good. They've got a lovely taste. Apparently they grow them quite a bit in Orkney and Shetland, so if they can grow them, we can grow them. So.
Great, okay. Trying to change my slide. There it is, right.
Ingens. Right then. Ancestor of onions probably had their origins in Central Asia. Just the stuff you get told when you're on courses. Got that written down here as well. So onions then. Onions, two ways that you can grow onions. You can either do it yourself and grow them from seed, or you can buy in sets. Generally speaking, I find the sets are probably a bit easier for up here. To grow them from seed takes quite a long time, and we don't always, unless you're actually buying a variety that can cope with winter conditions, which tend to be more of the sort of Japanese varieties, then I don't always have a huge amount of success growing them straight from seed. So I generally would recommend, especially for beginners, grow them from sets, and you can buy sets online and then just pop them in and they start to shoot and away they go. And it is a bit quicker. So they're a bit of a funny one, onions. They need some nutrients in the soil, but they don't like a huge amount of nutrients either, okay? And again, give them quite a well-drained soil as well. So if you've got quite a heavy wet soil, dry it out a bit, you can incorporate organic manures, and you can incorporate a little bit of grit and stuff sometimes as well into your ground. If you've got to start incorporating ton bags of grit, then no. But you can actually just, on the soil where you're going to put your onions in, you can actually just add a bit of grit if you find that it's not draining very well, because they don't like the cold and the wet that much either. So just be a little bit careful with that as well. Seeds are cheaper to buy, and they're prone to less bolting. You'd sometimes find that the sets bolt a wee bit as well. And all we mean by that is that they go to flower too soon before they're ready for you to harvest and eat. Okay. But onion sets, you want to make sure that the sets are nice and firm. You don't want any that are a bit spongy feeling, and be aware of any giants in the bag. And what I mean by giants are ones that are whopping, because these are the ones that will tend to bolt. Okay, so actually you want your onion sets to be fairly small, not like huge big bulbs in there when you go and get your packets. So you can plant onions in blocks, and what we mean by that is just think of a square pattern on the ground and just plant them out in a nice sort of square crisscross pattern like a crossword puzzle. So that's what we mean. So roughly about sort of 15 centimetres apart and about 15 centimetres apart from each other and about 30 centimetres apart in the rows. So if you give them a little bit more space, they will tend to grow a bit bigger. So again, it depends on what size of onion you want to harvest at the end crop as well. So just have a wee think about that, because sometimes it's lovely to grow a great big whopping onion that's this size, but that means that you might not use it all in one sitting and then you've got onion left over. So I tend to let mine grow a little bit, and I get them to roughly about the size of a tennis ball. And I think that's a great size just for onion, because you'll use the whole thing in a mince or in a chili or whatever it is that you're making. You'll use it all up in one sitting rather than having to cut it in half and put some in the fridge. Yeah, so yeah, don't dry them out. If you want to store them, dry them out. If you're going to harvest them to store, then make sure they've dried out a little bit in the sun, a nice sort of 2 to 4 hours in a nice sort of windy but warm day, and just dry them out before you store them, if you want to do that as well.
There was a question, Jill, about if you can plant them with carrots. Yes, definitely. They're great companion plants, and the onions help deter the carrot fly. So my go-to is to plant the onions on the edge and then the carrots possibly in the middle. But yeah, they've got very shallow root systems, as you can see in these pictures. So keep your patch well weeded.
Yeah. Just trying to think of anything else to add in there for that. Can't see anything else. So our leaf crops then are salads. Basically, you could just be eating lettuces just about all year round, even up here. So hold on a wee second, I'm just trying to find my varieties here. I've lost my page. There we go. Yeah. Various
sound effect.
Sorry, there's I just lost the page there. I realised I haven't put a marker on the right page. I was on endives and chives. So, right, what do we need for lettuce then? They're really quite easy to grow. They're quite attractive in form sometimes as well. There's lots of lovely different colours, lots of lovely different leaf types. Again, they're great for beginners, and they're great to get kids involved in growing lettuces and things as well. So I always think the lettuce that you grow in your garden is going to taste an awful lot better than anything you'll get out of a supermarket, because they pump chemicals and things into them to preserve them while they're in the bag. So personally, I don't like buying stuff out of the supermarket salads. I tend to just grow what I want. You also get a lot of what's called cut and come again. And what we mean by that within our salad leaves is that you can actually leave the root of the plant in. You can leave some of the leaves around the external perimeter of the plant, sort of pull the plant open a little bit and take out the central growing bit and just cut it and then leave it, and it will grow again. So that's what they mean by cut and come again. I have to be honest here, personally, I don't have the biggest success doing it that way. So what I tend to do is leave the centre bit and just take out leaves, not the full external ones, but the next in, and I'll take leaves from the middle section, leave the outer ones, and leave the centre bit to keep growing. Anytime I've tried to actually completely cut the centre stem, they just kind of fall over. So I've not had a huge amount of success with that. So I'll just pick the sort of middle leaves. Really, it likes fairly, again, lettuce can be a little bit weird. It likes moisture, but it doesn't like soggy, okay? So you do need to give them a site which allows them to be succulent, if you know what I mean, so that you've got that nice kind of refreshment coming from the leaf when you eat it. I'm not choosing my words very well here. They do like a fairly sunny position as well. And lettuce, they will grow quite fast. So that's a good one to do with kids, because you will see them coming through quite quickly. It's fairly tolerant of low temperatures. And you do get hardier varieties as well, depending on what ones you're sowing. But what you need to be very careful of with lettuce seeds when you go to germinate them is actually they don't like it too hot. So if you're thinking, oh yeah, I'll pop some lettuce seeds in a propagator, for example, they won't enjoy that. Lettuce seeds can germinate from as little as 7 degrees, sometimes a wee bit lower than that. And they really like it about 10 to 12 degrees. Once it starts getting above 15, 17, 18 degrees, and certainly into the 20s, you'll find that the germination rates will just drop right off because it's too warm for them. So they do not need to go in a propagator. You can pop them on a window ledge at this time of year and start sowing some lettuce seeds right now. So they're not really ones for a great deal of heat. Okay, they also do not transplant very well. So once you've grown them in your seed trays, move them into their final positions where you want them to then grow on. Don't try and keep moving them, because they suffer hugely with wilt if you try and transplant them. And if they fall over and wilt, they've not got enough moisture through them, the plant just collapses, and after about an hour you'll have lost them. Yeah, so you can have plants that recover from wilt, and you can have plants that get what's terminal wilt, and they're the ones that you'll never ever pull them back. Okay, so lettuces do tend to suffer a little bit from terminal wilt if you try and transplant them. Okay, modules are great for sowing lettuces in. You can sow 3 or 4 seeds in one little module, you know, one little square in one of those trays, and then just thin out the weakest ones and keep your strongest ones. So they're good for that. And you can, when the soil warms up a bit, so once your soil is consistently above 7 degrees, you can actually just put them straight in the ground and direct sow them, called in situ. Okay, so just keep them well weeded, keep them well watered. Try and always aim the water at the root of the plants rather than on the leaves as well. That's another thing to watch with lettuce in particular. Try not to soak the leaves all the time. Try and aim the watering straight down at the root zone. What else? Have I forgotten anything?
No, I think you're doing well. I'm also, it's almost 10:15, 11, so I'm going to...
Is it?
Yeah, I know.
Jeez.
You're wrong with you.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm going to add 3 very short things to that before the next slide. These are my top tips for salads. They are also shade tolerant, so you can put them in shady parts of your garden. Buy mixed packets of seeds, so you get a mixed variety of salads in one packet, otherwise you'll get really bored of eating the same salad all the time. And do successional sowing. So my top tip is get a tray with maybe 10 plugs in it, sow your salad. When you plant them out into your ground, sow it again with salad, and that will keep you in salad the whole year round. Does that make sense? Right, moving on. Cool. I'm going to romp through this one. Is there a question in the chat about?
There is a wee, just should you always refresh last year's soil in pots if you want to use again, please? From Jane. Hi, Jane.
Actually, Lindsay asked that one as well. No, not necessarily. I would maybe mix a bit more compost in, which would be fine. But you don't have to tip out all your soil. No, that would be my advice. Mix it, and we're about to talk to you about some easy plant feeds. So plants in pots need a bit more feed generally. So maybe be a bit more mindful of feeding the plants. But no, you don't have to throw all that soil out. That would be my advice. Lindsay had a question about that, which we'll hopefully cover. Cool, right, I'm going to romp through this, but some easy and free plant feeds. So on the left is eggshells. I think I talked about this previously. my advice, if you eat eggs, is get a tray in the bottom of your oven, and every time you've got an eggshell, throw it in there. It'll just cook when the oven's cooking. It can fill up, you can cook it 50 times over, but in the end you get out and you crush it, and that's a nice easy calcium feed for your plants, particularly things in your greenhouse like your tomatoes. Top left, that's a liquid manure. So things that like horse manure, or if you've got chickens, things like that, you get some well-rotted manure, stick it in a bucket of water in a sort of interior bag, so that's like a muslin bag or something, for about 10 days, and then dilute it in a watering can until it's about the colour of a weak tea, and that's a brilliant feed, a pretty good hit of nitrogen feed. That's a great one. You can do that also with comfrey. Comfrey is a fantastic plant to have in your garden. We have got lots of comfrey, and you can split the roots at this time of year, so if anyone needs help getting some started, probably not enough for 50, but if there's a couple of people that want some comfrey roots, I'm sure we could dig some up from the garden, or you can order it online. It's a brilliant plant. You cut down the leaves in the summer, and it's full of nitrogen, phosphate and potash, so things like tomatoes, peppers, aubergines, things like that would just really benefit from a comfrey feed. And you do the same, just soak the leaves. That's that bucket on the top right is another way of doing it. Put your leaves in with some water, something heavy to weigh it down, and then you just turn the tap and you get your feed out and you dilute it for your plants. Potash, I haven't got a picture, but if you've got a fire, save your ash at the moment, particularly if you use hardwoods. It's very soluble, so you want to keep it and just apply it in the summer, or in the spring, or add it to your compost heap. Or it's great for fruiting plants, any fruit bushes that you've got, or tomatoes, things like that as well. So potash is a great one to sprinkle around your garden. Seaweed. Seaweed is brilliant. It's a good foliar feed, so if you've got any waxy leaf plants at all, it's great for that. And also it's got lots of trace elements. It's valuable because it contains about the same amount of organic matter and nitrogen as manure does, so it's a brilliant feed. And you can apply that as a foliar feed, so again, just soak it. Picture on the bottom right, that's banana peels, good source of potassium. Stick them in some water, let them sit for, I don't know, sometimes I leave mine for weeks, and then I dilute it out and I use it as a potassium feed for plants. And the last one on the bottom left is urine. It's really one of your best friends in the garden. I've known organic growers swear by it. I wouldn't do it if I was selling it to you at the market, don't worry. But at home, it's not unknown for me to have a little bucket. I put it in my watering can. I might pee in a bucket, I put it in the watering can, and then I dilute that right down, about 12 to 1 at least. But that is an absolutely fantastic feed. Maybe don't do that if you're on heavy drugs or anything like that, though. Get your children to do it. Yeah, all sorts of free, organic, beautiful things that you can use that won't cost you a single thing. You don't have to go out and spend £50 on seaweed extract or something posh. All of these are easily Googleable.
So we have a couple of wee questions.
Oh yeah, oh dear.
Laura asking about adding wood ash to a composter.
Yeah, just do it. Throw it in. It's good in the compost heap.
You've got Anna is saying, oh sorry, it's not a question. Sorry Anna, she made herself nettle liquid manure last year.
I forgot that.
Plenty of a supply here too.
Amazing feed. Nettle is a fantastic feed. Well done. Yes. Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Absolutely.
Mary is asking to tell me what main crop seed potatoes to use. Golden Wonder. Golden Wonder's an old variety. They're good. Wait till I go check my book for the perfect ones as well that I've used. Hold on, Mary. Answer is coming. Answer is coming.
Maris Piper is a good main crop up here.
Yep, it's a main.
And also King Edwards.
Desiree.
Desiree's
a nice one. Yeah,
Cara.
Arden Victory. Cara. Golden Wonder. Long, with a very dry, flowery texture, thick skins, needs tons of butter, but excellent taste.
Roosters do very well up here. Are they a main crop? I think they might be.
Yeah, I think they are actually. I've got a big list of... Yeah, rooster, late maturing. Yeah. Good
Right,
reports from all over Scotland with rooster, including mainland Shetland.
I'm going to romp on, mindful of time.
Yep.
Doobie-doobie-doo. Bear with. Can you see my screen share?
Yes.
Cool. This is one of my most proud moments. Before I worked for Thursday Community Development Trust, I worked at the community garden down in Perthshire, and we came across the same problem that came up in the chat of when do you sow what with our climate. And we're going to point you to another resource, but this is my favourite resource, and this is Sue, who's in her mid-70s. And she was someone who supported the community garden, and as well as being one of the most prolific gardeners I've ever known, with like arthritis and multiple health problems and loads of things that meant that it was very difficult for her to grow, she, in conjunction with the community garden, produced this leaflet. So we're going to send this out as a PDF to you and a link for a website. But basically, this is what Sue's learned from gardening in Perthshire, which is a harsher climate than here, would you believe? Like right now, they're thick in snow. But it will tell you very simply what to do each month for our climate. So February, in heat, chilies, or wait till March. So she disagrees with Jill about aubergines. But you can start your potatoes off or start chitting your potatoes in a cool, dark place. And March, she's like, right, let's get going. So March, she says, right, start sowing. If you've got a polytunnel or a greenhouse in seed trays, you can sow these things. If not, if you can sow PT's polytunnel, or you can start doing things outside, green manures, and jobs that you should be doing if you haven't done them already. April, she starts letting you know, put some wood ash around your leeks and your soft fruit, some comfrey feed, weed your beds. It's a really fantastic little leaflet, and it's just really simply do this, do this, do this in this time of year. So we're going to signpost you to that one. I'm going to stop sharing, but we'll send this out to you all, so you've got a copy of this. And remember Sue, who's just the most amazing gardener. That's some old volunteers, that's amazing. And Jill, you've got another suggestion for?
There's also RHS do a phone app, and you can put in what plants you want to grow. Just add it into my plants option, and it gives you a reminder, and you get notifications through on your phone of the various different jobs and things that you've got to do. So that's a good one as well. And also there is a group called Garden Focused. There's a gentleman called David Marks who has his own website page, and he is at www.gardenfocused.co.uk. And if you put in your location into his website and tell him what you want to grow, he gives you a detailed list as well, very similar to what this is here, for growing and when to put things in. And he also puts a last frost prediction date on for you as well. So there are some good resources out there that you can use. And I just want to say that aubergine's an experiment, dear. It's an experiment. Right. I never said plant them in January. I said I was just experimenting.
Well, what can I say? Right, I'm just going to share my screen again. I had an email this morning from Lindsay, so there was a few wee questions from Lindsay. Jill, can I just read them all out to you and see if you can cover them?
Oh, yeah.
And the reason we're showing them here is I think that there's some really useful things. So last year, Lindsay grew vegetables for the first time in containers using a multi-purpose compost. What preparation is required for year 2? Should she top them up with new compost? One container had sand for carrots. How would she use that container this year? Oh, onions. When would you use eggshells for the calcium feed? Is Mr. Fothergill's not a recommended seed source? And what should strawberry plants look like just now? So she sent us a picture of her planters. And that's a strawberry plant. So I already replied and I said, your strawberry plants look great. That's absolutely fine. Maybe take the dead leaves off.
The leaves, yeah, just remove some of the dead leaves.
I'm really excited to see this picture because these trugs are great and they're cheap as chips, aren't they? From sort of the thingy store, nickel and dime. And And I don't know if you have already, but if you haven't, Lindsay, put some holes with a drill in the bottom of them just to let water out so your plants don't get wet feet. But go on, Jill, any advice, feedback about what to do with these containers for next year and next steps?
What was the first question again?
We're literally just going to spend a few minutes on this. Can you see the questions up there, Jill? So maybe just take 2 minutes or something, because there's other questions in the chat.
No, I can't see the questions.
Oh, okay, I might romp through them myself then, Jill. Is that all right? Just
yeah, on you go. I can't see them.
As you can't see them. It's saying my screen sharing is paused.
Oh.
Resume share. Sorry, I don't know why that was. Right, I'll romp through these. Yeah, I would top them up with my compost, or top them up with some of the organic matter that we've talked about. If you want to add a bit of seaweed right now, or some muck or manure, pop them on top and then turn them in before you start planting anything. One container has had some sand out of it. What you could do is you could either take that container and split out the soil between your other containers and then refill it, or you could plant something like onions in there. Depends quite how much sand you've got to use, but other root vegetables, things like parsnips maybe.
Parsnips.
That would be good. Eggshells, I don't know that there's a particular time. I tend to use my eggshells when my tomato plants are in the polytunnel. I just sprinkle it around the bottom when I've got them. So I think it's probably quite a slow release feed because it's so hard. So it's not going to be like a seaweed or a urine. It's like straight away you start to see changes. I think calcium's a slow release feed. So I just sprinkle it on when you've got it. Oh, I've got Mr. Fothergill's in my seed packet, but if the world is perfect and I've got lots of choice, I tend to go for one of the other seed sources that we suggested. But they're very commonly available and they've got a good reputation for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Remember that cultivars are okay.
Yeah.
Cultivars are fine if it's classed as a cultivar. So.
Sorry, Lindsay, I'm mindful that I've romped through those, but I think you're doing everything right. I would top your containers up a bit because I can see when I look at your picture, you know, they've sunk slightly. Mm-hmm. So you could maybe just get between that many, you could get maybe 3 bags of compost and just turn it in. Get some mulch on them maybe.
The only other thing I would add to that, with it being containers as well, is try to avoid using topsoil in containers, because topsoil doesn't keep a very good structure in a container. It tends to just condense right down and compact, and then there's no air through the root zone. Compost is a little bit better, but it will eventually compact down over time as well. So maybe the following year you might want to replace the soil in your containers, your compost in there, in your containers. So because it will eventually just all compact down. And you do need oxygen through the root zone as well. They do need oxygen through there. There was a couple of questions came up. Claire's asking about using a cold frame. Could it act like a mini polytunnel? You can use it to protect crops, yes. I don't think, unless it's a warm day, it's not going to get quite as warm as a polytunnel at this time of year. I know it sounds ridiculous. It was -3 out there, outside temperature the other day, and I went into my polytunnel and it was 7 degrees in the polytunnel, just because it was a little bit sunny. So I don't think you'll get quite a build up like that in a cold frame at this time of year, with it being glass as well. But cold frames are brilliant for starting off kind of hardy annual seeds, hardy annual flowers. So if you're looking at flowers, things like cornflowers, for example, are brilliant for starting off in a cold frame. They're also brilliant for hardening plants off. So if you've had things inside, take them outside on a cooler, shadier day. Don't put them out in bright sunshine, and you can use a cold frame to harden things off as well. But if a cold frame's all you've got, then use it. Give it a go. Don't shy away from it, because cold frames are a really, really useful bit of kit to have as well. Joanna's asking about starting to plant veg seeds in Caithness now or after Easter. That is a little bit dependent on what sort of facilities you've got in terms of growing, Joanna. If all you've got is a window ledge and some containers outside, I would maybe hang fire just a bit and wait until the weather is a bit more consistent.
And have a look at that leaflet that we're going to send you, because it says in there if it's indoors, if it's in a polytunnel,
Sharon's going to
or
give
if it's outdoors, and I would use that as a guide, because like I say, our weather's about the same, if not better here than there, and it will tell you what you can plant out.
Hilary, yes, your garlic should be fine, because garlic actually needs a cold spell of weather. It's a bulb, and it's called vernalization. When it needs a cold spell, that's its proper term. So they actually go through that process of getting really, really cold, and then it comes from that point. So yeah, it should be absolutely fine, as long as it hasn't been sopping wet. So again, garlic can rot like onions can if the ground is too wet, but we've not had a particularly wet winter. And snow acts as an insulator sometimes as well, so don't always rush to take snow off your plants.
Definitely corrugated plastic. I've got a good friend that's dog cut its something vein here by jumping over a glass cloche, and it cost him lots of money and more importantly lots of stress. So you've got a choice.
Yep, corrugated plastic's fine.
Jill, it's 10:57. It's our very last session. Would you like to say anything in our closing plenary?
I would like to say, first of all, thank you all very much for joining us. I'm absolutely amazed that we've had the numbers that we've had all the way through. It's been brilliant. I have thoroughly enjoyed your company. I would love to see you up at the community gardens when we can. And hopefully within a few short weeks, we might all be being able to speak to each other face to face. So yeah, keep in touch with us, ask your questions on the WhatsApp group. Delighted to absolutely help, and thank you so much again just for joining us, and I hope that you've got some use out of it as well. I hope you feel a bit more confident. If you were anything like me who knew nothing about growing, then you know you're on a great journey here. So just enjoy it and don't get too stressed out with things. Remember to sit back and enjoy your garden as well. And oh my God, just wait till you've eaten your first homegrown sweet corn. It's amazing.
Sweet corn.
I love sweet corn.
You could have gone so many places. Wait till you eat your first homegrown. Sweet corn. I don't like sweet corn.
Love it.
Oh, love it. Right. Yeah, that's us as well. Yeah, thanks ever so much, guys. I will send out an email or a WhatsApp if you've been receiving them with the last 2 series on it. Really appreciate this group. It's been really lovely and like interactory. So thank you so much, all of you, for being so engaged. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side in the garden or on the WhatsApp group. Yeah.
Faith, I am just outside Latheran, Faith, so I grew sweet corn as well just outside Latheran Wheel, and it tasted amazing.
She is as well, and she was told it wouldn't grow because it was so windy and never get it to grow, and they were only tiny but they tasted so good.
Yeah.
There is so many naysayers up here. You cannot grow it. And honestly, I always have a little chuckle because you absolutely can. And like, I think we said it in the first session, but that only limit is your imagination, and don't be disheartened. Just keep going. Get on.
I grew melons last year as well. I only got 2 little melons, and they're about the size of a cricket ball, but that particular variety, that's the only size they get to. But oh my God, they were amazing. The taste was unbelievable. So I was allowed to buy melon seeds again because Mr. Bird wants melon this year again.
Cool, guys. You're very welcome to, I don't know, head off, I guess. Send us any feedback if you want, or we could leave microphones off for a couple of minutes. I don't want to say goodbye to, because you've all got friends in the group as well. So maybe I'm going to shut the meeting in 5 minutes, but otherwise just feel free. I'm going to stop recording now.